Netflix's new #1 true crime show is a mob tale that's just as good as The Sopranos. While shows like The Sopranos are works of fiction, the Mafia is, in fact, real. A new 3-part Netflix documentary throws a light on the fight between rival mob factions in Philadelphia during the 1990s and the FBI's efforts to take down the two kingpins at the forefront. Often sensationalized for film, television, and books, Mob War. Philadelphia versus a mob puts the reality of the mob into stark contrast. Watch with Us is kind of fascinated with it, and we want to explain why it should be at the top of your Netflix queue this weekend. It spotlights a lesser-known mafia syndicate in the United States. People remember the names John Gotti and Al Capone, the Chicago outfit, and New York's Five Families. But what about Philadelphia's mafia? Does it even exist? Well, the Philadelphia Mafia became arguably excessively recognized during the 1990s, when a sequence of high-profile mob killings regularly made front-page news in the city of brotherly love, with these murders taking place in broad daylight. It was a brief but brutal fight between two dueling mafia kingpins, the old guard led by John Stanfa and the young guns fronted by Joey Merlino, a classic clash of generational difference. After the arrest of Nicky Scarfo in 1986, a slot opened up for a new mob boss in Philadelphia. The two contenders that went up to the plate were fiercely opposed and incompatible, and it started off a chain reaction of violence to determine who would be the next head honcho. The story is fascinating and doesn't overstay its welcome. At only 3 episodes, Mob War. Philadelphia versus the Mafia has a small window in which to cover a lot of information, yet it ends up being the exact amount of time for the narrative at hand. Director Raisa Bottman knows not to pad out too much time with extraneous talking head interviews and reenactments, the latter which are utilized sparingly, and does a terrific job at keeping to the facts and players at hand. Because the plot, while perhaps confusing at times with so many characters and unclear loyalties, is compelling on its own, and Bottman conveys the story straightforwardly. Eventually, things got so out of hand with the violence at play between the two mafia guys. There was an attempted drive-by killing of Stanfa along the Schuylkill Expressway. For one, the FBI eventually got involved to bring an end to things. But it was still tough to create a case of evidence against an organization that manages to remain so clandestine despite such brazen violence, and necessitated life-risking measures like infiltrating into mafia hangouts and planting bugs. The show's engaging filmmaking keeps things interesting. It's common for mob documentaries to get overloaded with interviewees, images, and old clips. But Bottman becomes a little more imaginative with her filmmaking, generating a tempo that manages to match the high-octane thrills of the true story she's presenting. The series contains fast-paced editing and exciting music, in addition to an unusual cast of individuals with clothing that you assume mobsters only wore in movies. It also helps that Bottman films her interviews in a rotating door of diverse locales instead of the stock, uninspiring interview space, from a dimly lit bar to the offices of the Philadelphia Inquirer and even a parked automobile. There are inherent restrictions to some sorts of documentaries, and most are usually decided by the quality of the subject itself. So it's good that Bottman goes the additional mile to provide a little extra creative energy to a story that really didn't need it. Netflix's Mob War. Philadelphia versus the Mafia is more than just a true crime documentary. It is a window into the dark, complex, and often misunderstood world of organized crime in America. By focusing on Philadelphia, a city largely overlooked in mafia lore, the series challenges viewers' assumptions about power, violence, and the structures that allow criminal empires to thrive. The conflict between John Stanfa and Joey Merlino is emblematic of larger societal tensions, including generational divides, ambition, and the constant struggle between tradition and innovation within any hierarchical organization, legal or illegal. One of the documentary's greatest achievements is its ability to humanize the story without glorifying the criminals involved. While Stanfa, Merlino, and their associates are undeniably charismatic and strategic, the series never loses sight of the devastating consequences of their actions. Families were torn apart, communities terrorized, and lives lost in public and brazen ways. In presenting these events with clarity and honesty, the documentary forces viewers to confront the human cost of organized crime, a stark reminder that these are not just stories, but real events with real victims. Culturally, the series resonates because it taps into a universal fascination with power and secrecy. Audiences are drawn to the Mafia not only for the violence, but for the insight it provides into loyalty, betrayal, and the lengths people will go to maintain control. By showing the meticulous planning, risk-taking, and cunning required to operate within such a secretive world, Mob War offers viewers a combination of suspense and education. It reminds us that crime is often as much about strategy and psychology as it is about brute force. The series also carries broader lessons about law enforcement, justice, and societal structures. The FBI's efforts to infiltrate the Mafia highlight the tension between legality and danger, showing how agents risk their lives to uphold the law in the face of ruthless opponents. This aspect of the documentary underscores a recurring theme in true crime media, that justice is rarely straightforward, and the path to it is fraught with moral ambiguity, danger, and sacrifice. Finally, Mob War succeeds in capturing the attention of modern audiences because it balances storytelling with authenticity. Its concise 3-episode structure ensures that the story is digestible, yet rich with historical detail and emotional weight. Creative filmmaking choices, dynamic interviews, varied locations, and thoughtful pacing add cinematic flair without compromising truth. The result is a documentary that is not only informative but deeply engaging, appealing to both casual viewers and hardcore true crime enthusiasts alike. In essence, Mob War, Philadelphia versus the Mafia, is a testament to the power of storytelling in the true crime genre. It proves that the real world can be just as thrilling, complex, and morally compelling as fiction. By illuminating the violent yet fascinating history of Philadelphia's Mafia, the series invites viewers to reflect on broader human themes: power, ambition, loyalty, and consequence, while remaining firmly grounded in historical reality. For anyone interested in understanding the interplay between crime, culture, and society, this documentary is an essential watch, and its impact will likely resonate long after the final episode ends.